We're on section 4-3, page 167. We're talking about multiplying matrices. So we have a matrix and we're looking at its dimensions. So we write that as the name of the matrix, A, and then a subscript with the dimensions, such as 2 by 3. And matrix B with dimensions 3 by 4. Again, the 3 by 4 is a subscript of your matrix name. And how do we know if we can multiply a matrix? So we set the matrices side by side, A times B, if that's what we're looking for. And then we set the matrix dimensions side by side. So we have 2 by 3 next to 3 by 4. So we have 2 by 3 and 3 by 4, just sitting next to each other. And then we look at our inner dimensions. So the inner dimensions is the second dimension of the first matrices, which is our columns, and compare it to the first dimension of the second matrix, which is the rows. And they have to match. So in this instance, we have 2 by 3. We have 2 by 3 and 3 by 4. So those inner dimensions are the same. Great. So since those are the same, we can say we can multiply it. So this does check. But how do we know what are the dimension size? We look at the outer dimension. So the outer dimension of the first matrix is 2, and the second matrix is 4. So our matrix answer dimensions is going to be a 2 by 4, meaning 2 rows, 4 columns. Okay. So now let's look at an example of how you do this. So if we have matrix A with dimensions 2 by 5 and B with dimensions 5 by 4, let's compare them. So we have 2 by 5 and 5 by 4. So the two inner dimensions are 5. They match. Great. So we can say we can multiply those matrices and it will work. Now looking at our outer dimensions, we have a 2 and a 4. So the answer is going to be a matrix in the size of a 2 by 4. 2 rows and 4 columns. Okay. So now let's talk about actually multiplying matrices. So the first one we're going to look at are multiplying square matrices. So there's a bunch of steps that we have to do in order to solve this matrix. So if we have a matrix of R and S and we want R times S, the first thing we do is look at our matrix. We have first row of R is 2 and -1. Second row is 3 and 4. This is all on page 169. And S has a first row of 3 and -9 and a second row of 5 and 7. Okay, so this is a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2. So all the dimensions match, and our answer is actually going to be a 2 by 2 as our answer. So when we're multiplying this, the first step is what we need to do is multiply the numbers in the first row of R by the numbers in the first column of S. So we're multiplying a row by a column. And this becomes the products become the first element in your matrix, the product and the sum. So what does that mean? So let's look at this. Okay. So we have our first row is 2 and -1 of R, and our first column is 3 and 5. So the first thing we do is look at this 2 times 3, and then we add to that -1 times 5. And that becomes the first element in the answer matrix. So we have 6 plus a -5. All right. Okay, so that becomes our first element. And so 6 plus a negative 5, and that would be 1. Okay, so that's good. All right, second step. Let me pull this down a bit. I'm going to move our matrix answer and pull that down. Oops. Okay, now we have step 2. So we have the first element of the first row, and step 2 gives us the second element of the second row. And we know our matrix is going to be answer of a 2 by 2. So looking at the first row again of R, we have 2 and negative 1. And we need to multiply that to negative 9 and 7, which is the second column of the second matrices. So we go 2 times 3, 2 times negative 9 plus negative 1 times 7. And that is the second element of the first row. So then we write that in our matrices for our second element. 2 times negative 9 plus negative 1 times 7. Okay, so that's step 2. Now let's look at step 3. Step 3 and 4 are dealing with the second row. So what we do is take the second row of R and multiply it again to the first column of S. So that second row is 3 and 4. First column is 3 and 5. So we get 3 times 3 plus 4 times 5. And we write that in our matrix. 3 times 3 plus 4 times 5. All right. So moving along to step 4. Step 4, we again multiply the second row of R times the second column of S. So this time we get 3 times negative 9 plus 4 times 7. So that goes into our matrix in the second element of the second row. And that's our fourth element. Okay, and so that's a 2 by 2. So now we need to simplify this. And when we simplify it, that means we need to simplify all the math. We need to multiply and add, and then we get our final answer matrix. Looking at the first element of the first row, we have 2 times 3 plus negative 1 times 5, which gives us 6 minus 5. So that's 1. So the element in the first row, first column is 1. First row, second column is 2 times negative 9 plus negative 1 times 7. So we have negative 18 minus 7, which gives us negative 25. Second row, first element. 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 5, 4 times 5 is 20, so that's 29. And the last element of the second row is 3 times negative 9, plus 4 times 7, which is 27, negative 27 plus 28, which gives us a positive 1. So the answer to our matrix is first row is 1 and negative 25, 29 and 1.